I'm also managing in here.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I take the temperature of the team a lot of times.
Yeah.
I can tell, oh, this guy needs more shots.
No, like Isaiah Thomas.
Yeah.
The original Isaiah
Great,
Thomas.
the legend.
Right.
They're both great.
Well, the other one was good.
Yeah.
He was solid. Had
Really?
a great
He won 2
year.
championships.
He had a great.
That's what he's
That's what
talking
we're
about.
First hour, first things first. Starting with tonight's game. 49ers favored in Seattle by more than a field goal. Strange. Seahawks coming off a loss to Greg Jennings' Giants, while the 49ers are looking up and saying, hold on, we're 2-3 and have only beaten the Jets and the Patriots? What in the world? What would a loss mean tonight for Purdy? You guys were fighting about who wanted to go first.
I just assumed I would. Here's another guy who was a candidate for the Bud list.
He didn't make it?
I don't know. We'll have to see. Wait an hour and 60 minutes. All right, but a loss, I mean, to me, it's more damaging to the team, first of all. Although they would be 2-4, guess when they were 2-4 in 2021 and made the NFC title game. They were 3-4 a year later in 2022, made the NFC title game. So that's a little something for the Niners fans. Take heart.
Just for the record,
even
they're
if you-
5-0 last year and made the Super Bowl.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, they've had slow starts before.
Okay.
They've had good years. Purdy's not the main problem. It's the defense, I think, has been a problem. They've been in the top 3 the last 2 years in total defense. Now they're 12th. Last week, they couldn't tackle James Conner. So the defense has to get it together. Brandon Ayuk had his first great game last week. He hadn't had 50 yards receiving in the first 4 weeks, so hopefully he's getting into shape. But Purdy's got to play better than he did last week. Last week was his first, in my view, that was his first bad game. That was the first time he had a passer rating under 89.
The game when
he had the 2 interceptions.
Well, the Vikings game when he said to Brian Flores, your scheme is crazy.
He
wasn't
still threw
a bad
for over
game.
300 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 pick. I mean, he wasn't great, but I wouldn't say it was like a bad game. That's the best defense in the league, or one of them right now. So I don't think he was great, but I don't think he was bad. I think he was cooking early in that game. But he's got to be better. But I guess, I mean, to me, this doesn't have long-term ramifications. Like we're talking about, we know he's going to be up for a big contract in the offseason. If he were to continue from what he did last week and play that way essentially most of the season and they have a terrible record, sure, maybe that's an impact. But I think for the most part, he's having a good season. He's not putting up the numbers he has in the past. But look at these rankings where he is this season. Yards per attempt, first.
Yeah,
yards per game, 5th. The 10-yard, 20-yard, and 30-yard completions, first.
Pretty good.
Yeah, but
Passer rating, he's 12th. And then here's the other thing, because again, to me, we're talking, and I think this is where Nick wants to go. We're talking about, will he get the $50 million
I don't
contract?
care about that.
All right, but I care about it. So I'm going to say this. These are the guys and their passer ratings who just got paid $50 million or more per year. Brock Purdy's got a better passer rating than all of them. Jared Goff's the same. 95 is better than Dak. This is this year. Yeah. Better than Dak. Better than the Prince, if we're still calling him that. Better than J-Lo, Jordan Love. Better. I'm trying to get to catch on. Jalen Hurts, Tua, better than all of them. So he had a bad game last week. He's had some so-so games. Yeah. But overall, I think he's played fairly well, and he's not the main problem.
Okay.
Do I need to get out the goalpost?
No, I'm going to do that for you, basically. I'm going to give you some options here because a loss tonight would mean we are trending towards Wilds. What I always said we were going to end up at with Brock Purdy. My most classic 2 of all classic 2s there were, which was to the point to where Brew was annoyed with me for my take on Purdy. You ended up annoyed with me for my take on Purdy. And I stood firm because just something was missing. And then Brock Purdy gave us, so we can do a little choose your own adventure. Do we want to hold, because Bruce says I moved the goalposts, Brock Purdy to standard X, Y, or Z? First standard is the one he set out for himself, where he was like, I want to be better in the second half of games and close teams out. Let's see, since he said that, how he's done in the second half of games. Well, it's gone the opposite. So that Brock Purdy set a goalpost right there. My goalpost had been, how is Brock Purdy win? He doesn't have the full set of Avengers. So let's set a goalpost here and see if you can tell a difference. Because when he's got all of them, they never lose unless they're playing Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah.
And when he's missing just one or two, but most of these games it's been just one, they're 2-7, 9 touchdowns, 16 picks, and 82 rating. Okay, that's his standard, my standard. What about just the calendar standard, which is, was there a forward-thinking, smart, savvy defensive mind that after he had 20 or so starts, figured him out, and he hasn't been the same since then?
Figure it out?
So let's go 10 games ago, up until he played Mike McDonald, who they played tonight, and since then, those look like different players to me. 18-3, 47 touchdowns, 11 turnovers, to 5-5, 11 touchdowns, 11 turnovers.
Like there's a blueprint on
You
Purdy?
were saying,
again,
2 weeks ago he was playing well.
No, yeah, 2 weeks. You're absolutely right that I thought Brock Purdy played really well 2 weeks ago.
No,
the
but
week
you were
before,
saying throughout the season.
No, because the
first 3
Vikings
games.
game I didn't think he played well, and last
But you
week
said
he didn't
you didn't
play
kill
well.
him for that loss.
Right. Well, Brew, we now have. Correct.
I'm just
that
saying,
is all correct.
the first 3 games of the year, you thought he was.
I thought he was playing fine, solid.
Okay.
Solid. But the argument's never been, is he solid? The argument is he going to get $60 million, as you mentioned, and the argument is he a legitimate force multiplier? You called him one of the Avengers yesterday.
I think he's played better than a lot of those Avengers.
So again,
I mean, seriously.
Again,
better than Ayuk.
Like Joe Burrow's 1-4.
You think,
we're talking. No, I don't think he's as good as Joe Burrow. But is there something saying about Joe Burrow now?
Well,
Matt Stafford's 1-4.
Yeah,
he don't have a couple receivers.
Brew,
I'm just saying, like you acting like Brock Purdy's trash.
No.
Because they're 2-3.
No, I'm not. What I'm doing is saying, hey, what's the standard we want? Purdy said he wanted to be better in second halves. That hasn't worked out. I said I want to see him play well when he doesn't have the superstar cast. That hasn't seemed to happen this year.
He hasn't played well now. Now he's not played well. He's not playing well?
Right.
Leading the league in all those categories I just showed?
3 of those categories were essentially the same thing. 10, 20, 30-yard throws. Yes, he has had a lot of chunk plays. I mean, they are
10-yard.
10 yards is 1, 20.
Yeah, but they're all interrelated. And so if they fall to 2-4, and if it is, this team last year, remember the argument, who's more valuable, Christian McCaffrey or Brock Purdy? I think it will give us a little light on that.
Did anybody say it was Purdy? Even I didn't say it was Purdy.
Well, I mean, he literally finished higher in MVP voting, didn't he?
No, he finished 4th, and McCaffrey finished 3rd.
Oh, okay. All right, my bad. Okay, so yeah.
I don't think anybody made that argument.
Can I throw a Shanahan bone into the mix? Why are they so bad in the red zone? Or we think that's, I know the argument they don't have CMC, but like I saw on Twitter, like every team doesn't have Christian McCaffrey. So, and every team is not, they're 29th best in the red zone. Isn't that
Kansas City's 30th.
Isn't that a little bit? I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Patrick, so I'm just saying, you can't put it all on the quarterback.
I'm not.
Because Patrick, the best quarterback in the league, is 30.
So I'm not putting that all on the quarterback, but that exact question is truly the genesis of why this conversation is oddly important to me. Because we saw it last year, in my opinion, when Brew would bring up, what did Christian McCaffrey win before he came to Brock Purdy?
Well, that's just a question.
Right.
What's the answer?
No,
to that?
they didn't win anything. Right. and now we're talking about Brandon Ayuk's strugglings as if that has potentially nothing to do with the person passing him the ball.
Oh, no. Because Jawan Jennings has been great.
Jawan Jennings has.
It's on Ayuk. I think you believe that.
I think mostly for sure. But the point, and now I think Kyle Shanahan, it would be impossible for you, to find 5 coaches that you could make an argument are better than him. Impossible. And I mean, because if you're going to say he hasn't won a Super Bowl, are there 5 active coaches with a Super Bowl ring?
But he's also given up a lot of leads in Super Bowls.
Well,
That's the thing, too.
Patrick Mahomes has come back on him twice.
He was up 10 with 8 minutes left. They should have won that game. And I was glad they didn't. I was pulling for Mahomes. But I'm just saying. And then, of course, Atlanta up 28-3.
Okay, but he's not the head coach of that team.
But he's offensive coordinator. He was calling the plays. And he made bad play calls.
So this is, to me, what happens.
These are facts, Nick.
No, I understand. Those are facts. But because credit ends up oddly being a zero-sum game. that I have no problem with saying, hey, this kid's overachieved all this stuff. But now what we're doing, they played a football game last week against a team that we all agree does not have an impressive defense, where they had the ball at the 42, down 1 with a minute and a half left, and the quarterback threw an interception. And that has barely been a topic of conversation, and now we're like, how good is Kyle Shanahan really? That bothers me. Kyle Shanahan's great. Kyle Shanahan is a great head coach.
Are people really like that?
What? I mean, it's what Wild.
Purdy has gotten blamed for that.
I'm just saying, if a great coach shouldn't be horrible in the red zone. All these statistics you're talking about with Brock Purdy are also fall on Kyle Shanahan. Kyle Shanahan just can't be this genius that sort of evades all sorts of criticism. You yourself have said, like, you don't believe in quarterback wins, but you believe in coaching wins. Okay, well, Kyle Shanahan needs to win this game without Christian McCaffrey. He needs to be better in the red zone with the players that he has. That's all I'm saying.
So I guess I think Kyle Shanahan has a far greater resume of excellence than the quarterback.
I'm not sure that's true.
Really? Okay, so Kyle Shanahan has been to a Super Bowl and an NFC Championship game with a guy who can't start in this league. We've seen it. So, yes.
Okay.
So he does have a bigger
What do you mean can't start?
Jimmy Garoppolo. Jimmy Garoppolo.
He actually turned. Well, if you really want to go there.
See, this is what we do.
No, this is what. What we do is bring up facts. Kyle Shanahan was 1-10 when he got Jimmy Garoppolo, and this is a fact. I'm not.
I know, but we got to move on. He
was 1-10, and then Garoppolo got there and they went 5-0. And Shanahan and John Lynch decided to make him the highest paid player in the history of the league.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's just a fact.
I thought you were going to say C.J. Beathard, which is the sign that we've reached
Nick
our
Mullins,
boiling point,
C.J.
and we need to move on. Bengals at Giants Sunday night. Joe Burrow's offense is flying high. Problem is, so are his opponents. Bengals defense is allowing 29 points a game. Only Carolina's worse. Here's Burrow on what needs to change.
Yeah, they were begging him. They were begging him.
I don't know if you've seen this stat.
That's good journalism.
All right. So started 1-5. So this is even if they lost the Giants game, 3 teams have made it out of 123 teams. So, Brew, you famously have written off the Bengals, and they did write back. And then
I could have used that.
You've gone a few different ways. Would you write the Bengals off with a loss to the Giants?
2 things give me pause in writing them off. One, their offense is legitimately great. Were they fourth, I think
third
in the league in scoring 28 points a game. Burrow is playing fantastic individually. Leads the league with 12 touchdown passes. I don't even know if he had one in the first game, so he's done all that in the last 4 weeks. So that gives me pause. And then the fact that the AFC is full of mediocre teams right now. Mm-hmm. And even if they're 1-5, I mean, you can see a way that they could still get in there at 10-7 or something like that. But all that said, at 1-5, if they lose to the Giants, Nick, in a game where they are absolutely desperate, in a game right after the defensive players held a players-only meeting to say, look, we have to hold up our end of the bargain. With all of that background, and you still would lose to the Giants, I get it that the Giants are better than we thought they'd be, right? They've played okay. Mm-hmm. All right, they've had some tough losses. They lost to Minnesota, Washington, and Dallas. Those teams are combined 12-3. Mm-hmm. So the Giants are pretty decent now, but still, they're a middling team in the NFL. If the Bengals in this context cannot go and beat a middling team in an absolute must-win, then I just have to think they're not good enough and they're not going to make the playoffs this year.
Yeah. Wilds, I think you're going to be happy with me here. If they lose this game, they're done.
Wow.
And it's not, because Brew is correct that 9 wins might make the playoffs in the AFC. And if we'd have said before the year, because if you're 1-5 to get to 9-8, you've got to go on an 8-3 run. If we'd said to you before the year, do you think the Bengals can go 8-3 over an 11-game stretch? We'd all said, yeah, that's certainly viable. But if you lose to I'll give you one, how the hell did that happen game?
Mm-hmm.
New England.
A year, maybe twice a year if they're very far apart and it's when you've kind of taken your foot off the gas. They already had that one in New England. If they lose to the Giants, they're not good. No, and it means they can't, their offense is not good enough to overcome this defense, which, by the way, there's a kind of a always bubbling war between Chiefs and Bengals fans on the internet, and Bengals folks right now are like, man, our quarterback is getting crushed by a bad defense, and Chiefs fans are throwing 2018 numbers right at them. So you can overcome the worst defense in the league and get to the postseason. We've seen it happen. If they don't, and that might be what the Bengals have to do. But if they win this game, they're not good enough. Where it might frustrate you, I do look at KC, Washington, and Baltimore losses as all totally forgivable. Everyone loses to Kansas City. Washington, the offense never punted. And Baltimore literally came down to a snap in overtime. And those are all right now, that's a 5-win team, a 4-win team, and what I think we all think is the best 3-win team in the league in Baltimore. Yeah. That's fine. You can't have a Patriots loss. You can't lose to Jacoby Brissett and Daniel Jones in 6 weeks fighting for your life. You just can't. So I'll be done with them if they lose. If they win, I think that this is the backside of it. If they win, which I think they will, I think the Bengals are about to win 4 in a row. Giants, Cleveland, at the Giants, at Cleveland, home for Philly, home for Vegas before they play Baltimore again. I think they are going to go into that Baltimore game 5-4. I know it sounds ridiculous because they're 1-4, but I think that they are going to. I think this is going to start a 4-game winning streak.
Okay. If you guys write off the Bengals, just to be argumentative, I'll be back in.
No, you're not.
The offense is too good.
No.
If they're 1-5,
they won't be able to go deep into the playoffs, but they could make the playoffs.
If they get there, the Chiefs don't want to see them. I'm serious. That's the one team that don't you think? No, I'm not saying Chiefs couldn't beat them. Obviously they can. But they don't want to see them.
Final thing, and I don't really like to do this on air because I like to keep, our business kind of like
here we go.
Behind the scenes.
Yeah.
Cause
you don't want to break the fourth wall.
Yeah, that's not exactly how that's used, but I had Joe Burrow on wristwatch. And because I saw him moving his wrist around kind of funny during the Patriots game. And then since he's done so well recently, he leads the league in completion percentage and passer rating, you guys use those numbers and touchdowns. Use those numbers, and you called me a fool.
Yeah, a fool.
Yeah, because how could his wrist still hurt if he's doing so well?
No.
That's a great question. Here's what he said today. If we can pull up the headline, I'm still not quite throwing it the way that I would like. He talked about getting healthier, so that's going to continue to get better as I get healthier, so there's always another level to find. So he can play better. He is still on wristwatch.
This last 2 minutes was about you saving face?
It's me setting the audience straight about the lies that you told about me.
Wilds saw this article, held his laptop up like a Super Bowl trophy, like the Lombardi, and carried it into the conference room and said, I told you so. What he is failing to remember and recognize is the argument was not, does his wrist still hurt?
Yes.
Your argument was his wrist is going to prevent him from throwing the ball downfield and their offense from being good, and they have a top 3 offense in the league.
Oh, that's good. What's their record?
See,
no, they're good. They're so good. They won.
You think his wrist is impacting their safety play?
How'd they lose against the Ravens? Why did they lose against the interception?
No, they lost because of the field goal.
No, they lost because they gave the ball back to the Ravens. They lost because they gave the ball back to the Ravens. He gave the ball back to the Ravens.
That was because of his wrist? He threw 5 touchdowns, 380 yards.
Guess what? He needed 6.
Okay, this guy. Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get more from the show and to check out clips from other shows on FS1.